Cargill, you've got your new movie, Sinister, and you're a kind of poacher turned gamekeeper, as it were, because you've gone from being a critic to being a screenwriter, haven't you? And you started off at Ain't It Cool News.
Yes.
So what's that change been like for you?
Well, it's been strange but great. I mean, it's been an interesting transition. You know, for 10 years, I was just immersed in it and celebrating the love of film and talking about it. And that's actually been, I look at it as kind of like my college doctorate, and this is my thesis. You know, it's been one of those things where I've really been able to apply a lot of what I learned as a critic. Because when I was a critic, I always knew I wanted to write fiction, and whether it was just novel writing or whether it was screenwriting, I went into every film trying to learn from it. And so over the years, I developed my own theories of storytelling and filmmaking, and now I get to apply them. And so it's been really interesting. At the same time, it's also very interesting to watch the process from the other side and realize some of the myths that critics hold and watching them debunked and then seeing why certain things are from the other side. So it's been a really cool kind of eye-opening experience at the same time.
So what are the biggest myths that you've found that you've had your eyes open to?
The biggest thing is that Hollywood is out of ideas. Hollywood has nothing but original ideas. There are so many great filmmakers out there that want to tell original stories and studios that want to make them, but the problem is that audiences don't want to see them. And audiences won't pay to see them. And people say, I want something new and original, but at the end of the day, they pay to go see a remake because they want to know what they're getting in advance. And so many critics spend so much time railing on this notion that everyone is out of ideas and can't come up with anything. And the thing is, they have tons of them that they want to show, but nobody wants to pay for them. And so it's been really interesting to see that process and try to maneuver that and tell an original story that we can get audiences to come and see.
Okay, well, with that in mind, let's talk a little bit about the state of horror and what the appeal is of horror, because obviously Sinister is a supernatural horror movie, isn't it? A very, very good one. Congratulations on that, by the way.
Thank you.
I mean, what do you think the state is of horror currently?
Well, I think it's really exciting right now. We've seen a big turn from the last decade had a lot of very realistic terror. And people wanted to, they were very, we had what has been sadly dubbed torture porn, where people wanted maniacs, they wanted torturers, they wanted real visceral kind of human experience. And now they've seen so much of that, and it's had to go so extreme that they want monsters again. And they want supernatural horror, and they want to see boogeymen, and they want to see things that scare them that are very not real, but at the same time play upon primal fears. And so that's a really great toy box. And 10 years ago, you could not get people necessarily to go see a ghost movie. We had a handful that were successful, but really the idea of seeing a haunted house movie, people were like, really, a haunted house movie that's kind of 1982. And now they're like, ooh boy, a haunted house movie. I love those. Those are great. And so it's a great toy box to play around with to really address people's primal fears and what really scares them without having to get more and more grotesque.
Now, the guy who's the lead in this, played by Ethan Hawke, isn't it? He is a guy who will go to almost any length for a story, isn't he? How far would you go for a story as a writer, a screenwriter, a critic?
Not very far. Ethan is very much, his character, Ellison Oswald, is very much what me and Scott are afraid of becoming. We both, I'm madly in love with my wife, he's madly in love with his wife and his kids, and we're terrified of the notion of giving ourselves so over to our career that we sacrifice our own family. And so we wrote from that perspective of let's write the guy that is the guy that we're afraid of becoming and showing how he could become that guy. And so how far would I go? Not very. And there have been a couple of things that I've gotten opportunities that I just couldn't take because of my family, and same with Scott. So I would say that this is as much we're playing upon the audience's fears as we're playing upon our own.
So would you, as he does in the film, if there's a noise in the attic or somewhere else, or say it's another film in the basement or something, would you go and investigate, or would you hightail it out of there?
I would investigate. I've actually, swear to God, I've been in a horror movie experience. This is no BS. I was a camp counselor when I was 17 years old, and we discovered a guy in a mask in one of the girls' cabins over the weekend when we only had a handful of kids and a handful of counselors, and it became that sudden going out, getting the guns from the rifle range, all holding up at the house, investigating, trying to find if the guy's still on the camp. And I was one of those guys who was like, let's go out, let's find this guy, come on, and made a lot of very silly mistakes that it's really interesting when you're in that situation. All of a sudden the logic of these horror movies makes a lot more sense when you can actually be in that situation and see just how scared you are and how stupid you get when you're that scared. These things, people go, don't go in the cabin. Why would you go there? Because the cabin seems like the safest place at the moment. Shut up. It's actually what you would do. So but I am the guy that when I hear a noise in the attic, it's like, my wife's like, go look at it. All right, I'll do it. And go and grab the flashlight, the torch as you would call it, and go in the attic and get killed. So yeah, I'm that guy.
Or at least you're here to tell the tale still. Do you ever say, I'll be right back?
Never. You never say, I'll be right back. That is one of the golden rules.
Exactly. A fatal error that would be, wouldn't it? You mentioned Scott Derrickson earlier. Of course, he's your co-writer and also director of this film, isn't he? And you met through Ain't It Cool News. And this movie kind of came about because of a random trip to Las Vegas, didn't it? Tell me about that.
Yeah, no, it was, we had been friends for a couple of years. He was a fan of my writing. He started writing me. I was a fan of his film. So we started writing back and forth. And we ended up in Vegas on the same weekend. And he discovered over Twitter. So we got together for drinks. And 5 White Russians in, he was like, hey, I've got this idea banging around my head. Can I bounce it off you? I said, yeah, sure. And so he bounced it off me. And I was like, oh, hey, that's a great idea. Let's, and gave him a few ideas on that. And I said, now that you mention it, I have an idea that's been banging around that I'd love to share with you. He's like, all right, hit me. Everybody pitches something to me once. This is your one time. And I pitched him Sinister. And at the end, he said, I want to make that movie. And a week later, we were in Jason Blum's office, and Jason Blum said, I want to make that movie. And 8 months later, we were making it.
I know, it's been incredibly super fast for you, hasn't it? What's going to happen next, do you think, after Sinister?
Well, Scott and I are working on a couple of other things that we can't necessarily talk about right now. I have a book coming out here in the UK as well as in the US. Rylance is putting it out here. It's called Dreams and Shadows. That comes out in January. And that's part of a 2-book deal, so I'm spending the summer working on the follow-up novel to that, which should come out the following January here. And hopefully we'll have another film that we can talk about shortly.